The next topic in the agenda is the 10 critical success factors for SAFE, what to measure by Sreeram Kolisetty, that's me. So this is one of my favorite and important topic, and I'll be watching the questions. If you have any questions, feel free to uh, uh, tap on them. So I'll be glad to answer them, right? So this is the quote from Edward Deming. So before I start, let me introduce myself. I am Sreeram Kolisetty. I've been working with Cyberbahn for last 3 years. Um, and I'm an SPCT candidate. I had my immersion week in the month of December. And since then, I'm trying to get through that journey and then, for that golden ticket of an SPCT. That's in brief. Coming to my career experience, I have over 2 decades of experience in the IT, completely in IT. Uh, for the first 10 years, I was in India, and next 10 years in US. So I'm like 50% of both the worlds. I understood. Probably not 100% of both the worlds. So it's a continuous learning journey, right? So that's what I am in brief. So if we look at what we are talking about is that this is what is the quote from Edward Deming, right? In God we trust, all others must bring data. So this is one of the important quotation, right? And most of you, most of us who started our careers in India and who worked in India very well know that whenever we have a client vendor relationship or whenever we are working with the other person, other company or entity, we look ourselves as, we measure the success based on the service level agreements, KPIs, key performance indices, and then various other factors, right? So SLO, service level objectives. So metric is something that is inherent to the Indian business, and we always measure the success. And it is important to measure the success as well, right? So you don't want to just say that, okay, hey, you don't want to be saying subjectively good, bad, ugly, right? So no, you want to really see how good it is or how bad it is. How do you measure your success when it comes to this scaled agile implementation, transformation, right? What you want to show to your business, like how successful it has been, right? So this is where the scaled agile provides some guidance here, not complete guidance, so some guidance. So it talks about the 10 critical success factors for essential safe. So we have starting with safe lean agile principles, that's number one, and then number two, agile teams and trains. And number three, we talk about the cadence on synchronization, and then it talks about the PA planning. It talks about um, the customer centricity DevOps, system demo, inspect and adapt, safe lean agile principle, IPA iteration, architectural runway, and lean agile leadership. So these are the 10 essential elements for any safe, any organization that is embracing safe. Um, in my opinion, all these are like your actual balance, right? So if you should not be doing one thing more and one thing less. You have to maintain a fine balance of all these things. Then only your train will be successful, right? So probably you are giving a team of 150 to 125 people as per the safe recommendation on a train, but how effective your train has been, is it really helping as a train, it is really helping you or not, right? So what is the train is helping, what is the train is doing. So if at all you need to take some action on the train, where you want to see, what you want to see. So that's what exactly I'm trying to convey here on the essential safe aspect. So I'm going to look at these 10 dimensions that we have here and apply some thought process of what you can measure on each of these 10 different successful factors for the essential safe. All right. So let's look at each of them. So the first one is the lean agile principles. Okay. So what exactly is the lean agile principle? So we talk about any flow, any digital transformation into two things. One is the lean and the other is agile. So do you have a lean and agile in your organization? So your maturity of the lean and agile principles will really help you to make your organization much mature, right? And we also know very well that it is the leadership who supports the transformation. It's always the top down. Bottom up is not a successful um, transformation. We always look at the top down, right? So in the Lean Agile principles, we talk about the percent of leadership trained in leading safe. So most of the organizations, what happens is that, okay, so as a leader, why should I do that? Why not? Why not the people at the bottom, right? So no, your leadership, if if they are not aligned, so one of the core values of SAFE talks about the alignment. If the leadership is not aligned, if they cannot think in one fashion, in the Lean Agile fashion, then you have a problem, right? That is where we are talking about how much percent of the your leadership is trained in the leading safe. So I have seen the cases where some leadership did not attend leading safe or did not bother to attend the leading safe. There comes a misalignment. They don't understand the importance of working in the lean agile environment. So it is always required to measure how much of leadership has attended the leading safe, right? A number of trainings, brown bag sessions done per PI on safe principles. So especially we talk about the Tuckman's model, forming, norming, uh, storming, forming, storming, norming, and performing, right? So every train goes through that cycle. So during that particular cycle, you need to have more and more brown bag sessions and the trainings based on whichever the phase you are in, your train is in, right? So that will help you reinforce the safe principles and focus on the flow. The goal of the entire scaled agile framework is to enable the flow. So when you are talking about enabling the flow, it is important to reinforce the principles. That way teams and trains are thinking about how flow is enabled, right? So real agile teams and trains, percentage of cross-functional teams. So it might sound like, oh, so do we have non-cross-functional teams? Yeah, I have seen some trains where they say that, no, you don't have to have the agile teams to be cross-functional. No, so you have to have the cross-functional teams. Again, it goes back to the Tuckman's model where you have farming, storming, norming, and performing, or you had completely component teams and you're moving them to the feature teams and component teams. Cross skilling is very much required. So that's when these will help. Uh, this will help to ensure that your train is a true agile train, which is able to deliver the value, right? Percent of arts that can deliver a solution. So what we are talking about is that take a large solution and you have like 4 or 5 trains. So one train, if you take it out completely, so can they deliver? Probably they can deliver, or probably they cannot deliver at all, right? So then you have too much of interdependency between the trains. So the goal is that when you are talking about the continuous integration, continuous delivery, yes, dependencies does exist, but try to minimize those dependencies. When you minimize those dependencies, that is going to help you better. Now, when we talk about percent of arts that can deliver a solution, look at your large solution. So I have seen the solution, I have seen some trains which are like 6, 7 trains in a large solution. So if one team, how many teams in that solution can deliver, how many trains in that solution can deliver the solution by themselves? Maybe it's slow, but can they deliver? If that is the case, that yes, they can deliver, then you have organized your trains very well. So that is what we are looking at. Okay. So moving on to cadence and synchronization, right? So how percentage of events that follow cadence and synchronization? Uh, this might be little wondering, because if you take your agile teams or trains, they all start at the same time and end at the same time. But there are instances where some teams will follow a different cadence and different synchronization, right? So system teams say that no, we are a Kanban team. We don't want to work as we are part of the train, but we have been following 3-week iterations or 1-week iterations. We continue to do that. So in those scenarios, what happens is that your cadence and synchronization have a significant impact on your trains. Our on-site team follows like a 2-week iteration and offshore team follows like 3-week iteration. No, that's also is not going to be helpful. So when you start your transformation journey, it kind of, you start in this fashion. You start doing this. Different teams at different levels of maturity. And as you move on, this metric is going to help you to make sure that you are allowing the cadence and synchronization to happen. So uh, Scrum identifies some ceremonies, right? Like iteration review, iteration retrospective, iteration planning, and daily stand up. And you also have your safe identify some of them, like the art sync, PO sync kind of stuff. And apart from that, there are so many other meetings, right? So like the backlog grooming. So are you following the synchronization of cadence on them? LPM meetings, right? The portfolio sync, architect sync. Architect sync is something that that we talk about when we talk about the architects. Are they happening with cadence and synchronization? So identify every event that your organization is using to make sure that your train is intact, and ensure that they are following the synchronization and cadence. Okay. A number of events that does not follow cadence and synchronization. So the reason why I'm asking to use this as a measure is that that is your improvement opportunity. Basically, you are looking at those events and you are trying to add them to the existing events, or you are trying to get cadence and synchronization to those events. PA planning. So I talk about the percent of successful PA plannings. So what exactly we are talking about? So when I say percent of successful PA plannings, where commitments are received within the time boxes for the event, right? So 2 days or 2.5 days or 3 days that you plan, and commitments are received within those 2 3 days. And you might be wondering, so is it possible that we don't receive the commitments within these time boxes? Yes, we have seen the PIs where commitments will not happen within the specified timeline, right? So this is again goes back to the fact that there is no proper training and there is no alignment with the teams, and there is no good amount of or enough preparation required for the with the features kind of stuff. So in those scenarios, your grooming did not happen very well. Those scenarios we see that PA planning can you may not get the commitment from the PA plans, right? Percent of teams who attended the PA planning. This is one of my favorite metric. So the reason why I say this is that I have seen several organizations, especially the US based organizations, PA planning 2 days, no, teams are not working during that period. I don't want to spend the money on that. No, teams are working, right? Basically, teams are understanding and teams are trying to give the commitment together. So this kind of mindset is a lot that I have seen in several companies who are using the services of the consulting companies, and they think that okay, so 2 days, 16 hours for so many people, I'm paying and I'm not getting any value out of it. But you actually get a lot of value out of it. I want to take an example. So this is one thing that happened with a client of mine, and they mentioned that no, we don't want these guys to come to the PA planning, the offshore team. So instead, I want them to work on the issues that we still have pending from the last PA. And I asked him, so why do you have the issues pending? And his answer was like, okay, so the last PA also they did not last PA we did not make them attend, and then there are so many dependencies that did not get resolved. Okay, so what do you think would have happened if they have attended the PA planning? Probably they would have resolved the dependencies, right? So he was not bought into it. Trust me, he was not bought into it. So then finally, I had to make a deal to make 50% of the team to attend, and then 50% let it go. So they don't have to attend because it's compromise. I wanted to show him the value. So when the 50% of the team attended the PA planning event, uh, customer kind of started realizing, okay, so by not bringing everybody together, I'm losing out on the dependencies, which has internally affected their budgets because teams take more time resolving the dependencies, right? So that is the reason I'm saying that percent of teams who attended the PA planning. So it has to be always at a higher percent. 95% and above, 100% if possible, right? So that's what we always say. And sometimes there are some anti-patterns that will happen. Okay, so my lead will attend, my architect will attend, I don't have to attend, right? They are making the commitment on your behalf. No, that kind of shows you are in a command control environment. You don't want to get into command control environment. You want to be self-organizing teams. That's the critical factor for any successful safe implementation, right? So self-organizing teams, that's what we talk about. So next metric is on customer centricity, DevOps and release on demand. This is another of my favorite one. Percent of features where design thinking is applied. So for most of the people who are in the product line, product management area, so I always used to challenge this. I mean, thanks to Scaled Agile, because of the fact that they brought APM course, right? I always used to say that, okay, so guys, imagine that I have the deep pockets. I have as much money as I can burn. And then I get you the rock solid developers, rock solid testers, and rock solid infrastructure. Whatever you ask, everything is there. But if I'm not building the right product, how do you ensure that I will make return on investment, right? So that's a very, very important thing. So how do you make sure that whatever you're building is the right thing for the customer? So there was no mechanism to identify. So it's always like hypothesis. Okay, so probably this will work well in the market, and then develop it. If it does not work, you lose the money. If it works, you make the money, right? So there was a lot of research that was done, but now this design thinking will provide you with enough of that information about the customer centricity, right? You apply the design thinking on every feature that you are going to develop for the customer, and the chances of failure are very less when you apply the design thinking, right? So that is the reason I like this metric where you are identifying the number of features that went through the design thinking, right? So should all the features go through the design thinking? Answer may not be yes, because you have some of the features which are enablers, right? So in the enabler scenario, you may not have design thinking aspect because those are the architectural pieces. But any feature which is going to be consumed by the end user, try to apply the design thinking, right? And percent of backouts after releasing on demand. This is another important metric that shows the stability of your application. I'm sorry. Imagine that we have a DevOps culture, and then we are able to do the release on demand. But more frequent backouts that you are doing, that means your code base is not stable, right? So this kind of shows that you are not in sync with your your integration. You continue to have your integration issues, and then the team collaboration is not well, right? So that is something that it is going to show when you talk about the percent of backouts after releasing on demand. System demo. So this is another important, very, very important metric in when it comes to the safe implementation, right? Percent of system demos conducted. So in a PI, you plan so many system demos and how many you have actually conducted. So sometimes you may not conduct, and sometimes you don't even conduct at all. I have seen some trains where system demo is not done. So there are two things with this, guys. So one is that if you don't do system demo, you are anti-agile actually, right? So the reason is one of the principle of the Agile says that working software is the true measure of success. So if you are not sure the working software, then it's not a true measure of success. And second thing is that objective evaluation of working systems, that is another safe value we talk about. So if you are not showing the objective evaluation of a working system, right? So system demo is basically a working system. Then also you are not giving the value to your customer, right? So this continuously doing the system demos will kind of shows the ability of the organization to continuously demonstrate the functionality. So that's important. So you are doing the system demos means yes, you are ready for the release on demand. If you're not doing the system demos, then there are a lot of integration issues, then a lot of um, code integration issues, a lot of stability issues. You can look at the root cause of why the system demos are not being done, right? So that's important to do the system demo. If anyone asks me to choose one event that shows the agility of the team, I'll say system demo, period. No hesitation. So system demo, how many times you are doing, has it been successful or not, right? So this is the next one, the other one. So percent of system demos where both architecture and functionality is demonstrated. Okay. What I'm talking about here is that this is another important aspect. Again, I want to thank Scaled Agile for introducing safe for architects, right? When I am coming to you as a businessman and paying you for the money, so what am I paying for? So your immediate answer would be for the functionality that I'm going to see, right? So if you are paying for the functionality, if I'm paying for the functionality, are you focusing only on the functionality, or you're also focusing on the architectural piece of it, right? You are also focusing on the architectural piece of it, stability of it, and then maintainability of it, reliability on it, flexibility on it. What happens typically in any organization is that, okay, yeah, architecture is not giving me the money, so let me build on the functionality. But guys, the architecture is the foundation, right? So architecture is like keeps architecture keeps going as you growing as you start adding more functionality on the existing foundation. On existing architecture, you cannot build beyond certain things. So what you need is some architecture, some new foundation, and then build the functionality. Some new foundation and build the functionality, right? So this is what I compare with. This is what I compare to many people. Let's say you want to lift a beam, like an iron beam, right? So you have two people, both of them on one side each. So one guy is your features, the other guy is your architecture. If you feed the architecture guy more, then what happens? Your beam will not sustain because you are not giving the functionality, right? So your functionality may not work better. And if you are only feeding the functionality, not the architecture guy, then what happens? The architecture guy loses their stability. So you have to have the people who can lift. You can take same amount of weight on both the sides. Then only your architecture will be successful. So in every system demo, if any organization says that they are doing system demos, happy, very good. But are you demonstrating both architecture and as well as the functionality? If they say only architecture, then they are waterfalling their PIs. Or if they say they are only demonstrating functionality, then they are not focusing on the application architecture. So both should be there in all the system demos. Okay. Sorry, there are questions, and I will answer them as I go. So we talked about the. Oops, I think it's a repetition of this slide. Sorry. Inspect and adapt. So this is another important event. So that is where, as a train, you are improving, right? So you are not just looking at your teams. So inspect and adapt is where you are improving as a train. So number of improvements identified for the program. So every time you do your inspect and adapt, what are the how many improvement items you are identifying? So that shows that the members of the train are thinking about improving the train, right? So that's important. As a team member, I have my voice. As a train member, I have my voice, and I'm able to give my opinion, right? And how many improvement items are successfully implemented? So this is another factor. So inspect and forget. So this is another thing that happens in some organizations. They do the inspect and adapt. They find the action items, but they never get implemented. So if you are not implementing, what will happen? So the next time, your inspect and adapt will become very routine. People don't even want to attend the inspect and adapt, or they will just attend because our organization is forcing them. If you want to show the real commitment from your team and you want to get your real commitment from your teams, then it is important for the management to ensure that they are taking the action on the improvement items, right? And also, as coaches, as practitioners, you have to ensure that management is understanding the importance of the inspect and adapt. So that's a very, very critical event, a very, very critical event. So PA system demo gets enough importance, but problem solving and number of identifying improvement items and incorporating them takes a little bit of less importance. That's what I have noticed, but it is important to have that. And again, the reason for this is just because of the old mindset, the traditional mindset. So the traditional mindset is the killer. So if you are looking at these things, then what happens? So first PI, probably you didn't implement anything. Second PI, you didn't implement anything. So that's where you are kind of getting to show to your management, okay, guys, we are not following the safe principles, right? This, you are not looking at the successful factors of the safe. The IPA iteration, so this is another important element. So the team spends approximately 2 weeks. Team spends 2 weeks in the IPA iteration. If you spare the 2 days PA planning or 2.5 days PA planning, approximately you have 7.5 days. What are you doing in the IPA iteration? So measure this percent of time spent on innovation activities, learning activities, infrastructure improvement, and planning activities. So this kind of tells you what is lacking in your system. What is that you need to spend on? So learning activities, you are not spending in the last 4 PIs, nothing has been spent, zero money has been spent, zero time has been spent. That means you are not sharpening your axis, right? So if you are not sharpening your axis, what will happen? You'll slow down, right? Infrastructure improvements, no infrastructure improvements, your home is not painted, nails are not removed and cracks are not addressed, then what will happen? Your house starts crumbling. So that is infrastructure improvement you have to make. And innovation activities. So how you can make your application work faster, look better. These are some of the innovation activities. So all these things are part of your IPA iteration. If you don't have IPA iteration, if you are not doing these activities in the IPA iteration, what will happen? Then there is no value for IPA iteration. So one of the biggest funny thing in US that I see is that the moment you talk about IPA iteration, people are like, oh my God, IPA iteration. So people are not going to do anything. No, guys, they are doing a lot of work. They are doing a lot of work during the IPA iteration. So all this work translates into a team working better in the next PA. All right. So moving on to the next successful element, architectural runway, right? these are the things that I measure on the architectural runway. Percent of architecture versus features built in each iteration. In the capacity planning, so I was looking at, I was at a healthcare company, right? So this happened last week. When I was doing the safer architects for them, I have asked them like how much work goes into how much of the architectural work goes into your iterations. I was hearing numbers from 0 and maximum is 9. And in reality, you need about 20 to 30% of the architectural work on a very iteration to make sure that your product is stable. But some organizations don't understand this. Architecture, it's not going to give any value to me, so I don't want to spend money. So that is where I'm saying percent of architecture versus features built in each iteration. So if you measure this, and over a period of time of 1 PI, 2 PIs, you'll know, are you spending enough time? Are you spending enough energies to make sure that your architecture is stable? So if that is not happening, then your application, keep in mind that your application is about to crumble. It can fall down anytime. So that's another important aspect. And again, this will kind of tell your management, or this will kind of tell you that there is a equal weightage to the architecture and as well as the features. Okay. Percent of infrastructure and architecture improvements in each PI. Again, today we are living with a lot of legacy systems and on-prem data centers kind of stuff, on-prem infrastructure, right? So how much of improvements you are making on those things? So we all know that hardware is like, as time goes, it kind of crumbles, right? So it keeps going down. Their capacity will go down, and then their capability will go down. So it is important to continuously maintain your infrastructure. So how much of effort is going into that? Okay, so this is another metric that I would like to speak. And finally, the lean agile leadership. So what we are going to do here. So percent of lean agile leaders. So this is an important thing. So change agents and coaches. So one of the survey by the Scaled Agile says that you need one SPC for every 25 people. So out of your lean change leaders, how many of them are lean agile leaders? How many of them are real change agents, real coaches? So that's important to have decent amount of focus and decent amount of mindset to make sure that your leaders are embracing the lean agile leadership. And percent of SPCs on the train, more SPCs better. That does not mean that the whole train has to be SPCs. You can decide what is the right percentage for you guys, what is the ideal percentage in your industry, and embrace that as a part of your journey. Okay, so these are some of the metrics that I wanted to share. Again, I have implemented this metric with some of my clients. So should if I have an example of a company, can I use the same thing for my company as well? No. This is what I recommend, guys. Based on the geography you are in, based on the line of business your clients are in, or line of business you are in, identify what is the right percentage for you. Identify what are the right figures for you, and look at where you are at this point of time and where you can be. This is what I tell you. I tell in all of my trainings and with all of my consultants, right? So, and Dwayne was giving an example of customer centricity this morning. If we want to take Amazon as an example, Amazon does 10 releases every second. I'm not even kidding. So you can Google and find out how many releases they do to the production, right? So they kind of do 10 releases every second. And should we be as fast as the Amazon? Can we be as fast as Amazon? Yes, you can be as fast as Amazon. Can we be as agile as Amazon? Yes, you can be as agile as Amazon. But should you be? No, right? So can I be the best in the world? Yes, you can be. Should I be? Probably not, right? So it depends on the context that your applications are working and your systems are working, your organization is working. So you will look at those various elements and look at your industry peers and create a benchmark for yourself, and then keep going. So to give example, one of my financial industry, one of my financial client, they had like one release in every 3 months, but that was not sufficient for them. And finally, they realized that after trial and errors, they kind of figured out that because they have only one competition in the market, only one other company has competition in the market, and this company is a market leader. So they want to sustain and be the market leader. So they cannot compare with their competitor because their competitor is far behind. So they kind of did trial and error and identified that, okay, we need 4 releases a day, which is enough for us. So they got there from 3 months to 4 releases a day in about 9 months period by investing in the DevOps, investing in the infrastructure and everything. So that is something that I would say, like, identify yourself, what is the industry you are in, identify the geography you are in, what is the right thing for you, and apply those numbers. So you cannot compare apples to oranges. So that's what I would recommend. Okay. With that, I'll take a question here, which has come in the chat. I'm introduced to PI success measurement in terms of total business value achieved at the end of the PI. Then compare the old PI's business value. Want to explain you 2 minutes to get inputs from you to people of the session. Okay, let me know if possible. So, Saurish, you want to speak to it?
Yeah.
Sure. So basically, we're talking about the business value attached and then the value attained, right? So right. That is one of the thing. That's only one of the measurement. So that can show you value of, that can show the predictability of the train. But these are the other metrics which will ensure that the train is
So
continue to function as it is.
perfect. Perfect. So all the metrics you have shown, this are really valuable and very, very powerful. So in addition to that, what problem in the real life we faced with our CEOs and the business guys, because
Uh-huh.
we are involving them at the time of pre-PI planning, and they are allocating logically with the Fibonacci series a business value to a different features. So
Correct.
their interest is at the end of the PI, while we are running the engineering and the product team, at the end of the PI, how much business value achieved. And last 2-3 PIs, I created a matrix where total business value for the product, total business value for the platform side, different feature wise. If we really produce those and available for the customers in production, we consider
Mhm.
that business value achieved. And
Yeah. So
based on that, we are measuring and we are
yeah.
improving over the PI.
Yeah.
Maybe
So sorry,
use.
this is what I want to tell you, right? So you made one point that we attach the business value to feature. No, don't attach the business value to the feature. Attach the business value to the PA objective. So
Yeah,
PA objective is
no,
something.
we objective only. So not the feature level. Feature level actually bits low level, which product manager used to assign. But the
Okay.
business guy is assigned to the objective level, top objectives for the top value streams of product, top product value streams, and top 10
Sure.
objectives, kind of top 10 objectives.
Sure. Sure. Awesome. Awesome. Good. So Devashri, you said I have a question regarding this cadence. What is the period we measure these metrics? Is every PI a good cadence? That's a good question. So you start measuring every PI. Yes, that's a good cadence for every PI. Uh, but I believe you need to have a benchmark of this is where I want to go, right? So today this is where I am and this is where I want to go. And PI after PI, just make sure that you are going in that direction. So that
Okay,
should help
so we
you.
show a trend. Basically, what you are trying to say is, say for 3 PIs, we show the trend and then take it forward from there where the improvement is.
Correct, correct. So it's a PDCA cycle, right? Plan, do, check, adjust. So you are kind of planning and then checking at the end of every PI. So what we are doing,
Mm-hmm.
and then making the adjustments.
Okay.
That's how you go about it. Okay, so Kavita is asking which metrics do you suggest to start with, since there will be some investments to start capturing the measurements. These are not straightforward measures, right? So Kavita, so this is what I would say. So do we need to have a separate metrics person to do all this? No, you don't need to have a separate metrics person to do all this. That's the number one answer. If you ask
Okay.
me, what should I focus on? One metric.
Mhm.
There are two of my favorite things here. Percent of features where design thinking is applied. So that is the maximum value that customers are going to get. And then
Okay.
percent of system demos that are conducted. So these four um, will show a lot of things that will make life easy for yourself. I mean, if you ask me, yes, no, I cannot invest in all this. I want to invest only on these
Mhm.
three. Give me the top three. So these are my top three.
Okay. Thanks, Sreeram.
Yeah, sure. Any other questions, guys?
Hello, Sriram, this is Arun here. So
Yes, sir.
we spoke about architecture runway, right? So we have mentioned that the arc stuffs which had to be within the same iteration or sprint which we are working on. So that would
Correct.
be a baseline for us, so that in the upcoming sprint, so that the other team members can take that from the baseline. So is that what we conveyed?
Yes, yes, sir. That's exactly right. So, I mean, I have seen several anti-patterns in this one, right? So, let
Yeah.
me take about a brand new application that you're building. So, okay, first PI, let's do all the architecture work. And then second PI onwards, we'll start doing the feature work. So, it looks like you are following safe, but at the end of the first PI, is there any value that customer is getting? Probably not.
Yep.
This is one anti-pattern that I have seen. Second anti-pattern that I have seen is that application is already existing and you are adding new functionality to it and new business functionality to it. So when you are adding the new business functionality to it, what happens is that your architecture does not support the new business functionality as is. Sometimes it may and sometimes it may not. Um, what happens is that uh, when it supports, yes, you can take care of it. When it does not support, if an architect is coming and kind of questioning the product management, saying that, okay, hey guys, our existing architecture does not support, then there'll be a pushback from the product management and say that, okay, hey guys, no, I don't care, man. I mean, I don't want to spend the money on the architecture. So I want this functionality. Then what does the architects do? They try to tweak the existing functionality, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit, and eventually the application will fail. So this is where I kind of highly recommend I highly recommend, especially the RTEs, STEs, the research engineers, solutions engineers, and as well as the coaches, especially coaches play a pivotal role here to mentor the management and show them that, okay, hey, there is a value in both the sides, right? So without the architecture, your your functionality does not go well. It's something like this, right? You are traveling on a road from city to city. You want your road to be good before you go to the next mile. What happens if your road is not good? You'll slow down. What happens if it is a hill? You can't move forward, right? So that's how it is. I mean, that's the reason it's called a runway. So if the runway is good, you move faster. The runway is not good, you cannot move faster.
Yeah,
Close
exactly.
it out. No? Focus कर.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
And
go ahead, please.
and currently, so this our runway has been recently been we are trying to adapt that. But what I see is, so the way whichever suit that would really make value to the team. But what currently the team or the art is doing is, so we have a separate backlog for the architectural works, so that we discuss that in the current PI, and then those work as being transferred to the next PI. So ideally, it is kind of,
That is where I said IP iteration improvements, right?
yeah. Got it. And Sriram, I have one more question also. So we also spoke about system demos, right, within the art. Sorry.
Go ahead,
So
Arun.
we
Go ahead, Arun. Arun, I think I lost you. Praveen, is it possible to share the slides after this session? Yes, I can share these slides, sir. No problem.
Hi, Sriram. This is Subhashni.
Yes, Subhash.
Sriram, can you please navigate to the arc runway slide?
Which one, please?
Arc runway.
Art runway. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So here on the second point under the measurement, percent of infrastructure or architecture improvements in each PI. How do we quantify this, Sriram?
So basically, you have enablers, right? So in the enablers, there are several kinds of enablers. So infrastructure improvements and as well as the architectural so one is that existing infrastructure improvement. The other one is that you are building the architectural runway for the future, right? So as you start building more and more, you are kind of refactor the old infrastructure. So if you are not doing that, then that means, so let's say 2 PIs or 3 PIs, I look at them, and there are no infrastructure or architecture improvement items, then that means you are not maintaining your system. So every time when we are talking about a system, you need to overhaul them, right? So now and then, so a car needs an oil change, a bike needs a bicycle needs oiling here and there, right? So you greasing here and there. So then only it functions smoothly.
Okay.
So if those kind of things are not done, then what happens? So the system application performance will start going down. So that's where I'm talking about. So among all the enablers that you have implemented, how many of them were used for the infrastructure improvements? So again, percentage is something that you have to decide depending on the nature of your business and nature of your application. And if the percentage is 0, then I'll be concerned. Does it help, Subhashni?
Yes, and how does it differ from the first measurement? Because even there we are talking about the percent of architecture versus features built in each iteration.
Correct.
So
the difference
do that
between the
on
first,
each? Sorry, go ahead.
So the difference between the first one and second one is that first one, we are talking about only the architecture is getting built or not. So you are right to an extent. If the first one is 0, second one is blindly 0, I can say that, okay, so there's nothing happening here. If the first one is, let's say, 10%, then I would assume the infrastructure improvements are at least 2% in that. So if it is 0 continuously, the second one also, first one, yes, care is taken. Second one is 0, then it shows that there is a lot of stale architecture, stale infrastructure existing in your application.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks, Sri.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, any more questions?
This is Saravanan. On the
Yes,
tech
sir.
dev items that the team works on, each PI, do they also fall into that architectural runway measurements?
So database team. So this is a little bit of anti-pattern, Sharvanan, again. So you do not have a train or team for the database. They are part of the shared services, or they are part of the train, unless your project is something like a data science project. If it is a data science project where you are generating the reports kind of stuff, yes, in that case it falls into the same category.
Okay, yeah, that's the case. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you.